اوكي، دايما لما بنيجي نعمل ديموز بتحصل حاجه ظريفه جدا. بنتست الديموز قبلها بالليل، كل حاجه شغاله تمام. يجي وقت الايفنت كل حاجه بتخرب. ده الطبيعي. ربنا يكرم ان شاء الله. اوكي، الديموز انا عندي 3 separate ديموز. نعم؟ لا شغال. 3 separate scenarios ممكن to dive deeper into شويه. The first demo is actually a very simple demo, which is Zoom phone, يعني Zoom on a mobile. بالتالي السؤال اعتقد يمكن المهندس يمكن مش موجود في الغرفه anymore، بس I think السؤال اللي سأله can I use the same app? This is the same app. كل الفكرة بس انه once ان انت you added the Zoom phone license to the user بيبان الزوم ايكون في نفس الكلاينت. تمام؟ The very effectiveness of Zoom اللي يدي global telephony access للusers and all they need is يا لابتوب يا the Zoom app on their mobile أو the Zoom application على اللابتوب. We will get into شوية تفاصيل إنه how we get the BYOC architecture. I think حاجة تكلمت على ال SBC which is exactly what we require. نتكلم شوية بالتفصيل عن القصة دي، ولكن just for the sake of time, the simplicity to add numbers and assign them to the users. Zoom provides the numbers in 40, 60 plus, 46 plus countries. Middle East is not within them. فبالتالي مصر الخليج we have to go with the BYOC route. ولكن a user can end up with one Zoom application on the phone برقم مصري ورقم إماراتي ورقم في UK ورقم في ألمانيا ورقم في أمريكا, and it's up to you how many numbers you want to assign and what numbers you want to assign, what local extensions does he have. So لو تلاحظوا this extension is extension 3001. معرفش واضحة ولا لا. This is the internal Zoom phone extension. This is the PBX extension. ودول الأرقام الخارجي الأسايند لليوزر ده. أنا أقدر أعمل call using أنا هطلب الرقم الإماراتي رقم في الإمارات. الكول اللي بعدها أنا هطلب رقم في US أنا will dial. الكول اللي بعدها هطلب رقم في مصر. Inbound the same thing. أي حد يطلبني على any of those numbers the call will come to the client regardless أنت فين. All you need again internet for this to work. This flexibility عشان نوصل لها using traditional on-premise system very difficult and expensive to implement. طيب the first scenario is simply I want to make a call Okay, I hope ما يكونش في audio feedback. Okay, فيش feedback. Okay. أنا عايز بس أوريلك الانترفيس شكله عامل إزاي. إحنا دلوقتي ردينا على الانترنال كور، تمام؟ طبعًا you have access to DTMF dial pad. عندك access to open speaker, transfer, hold, add someone to the call conference, manually record the call, escalate to a meeting. This is interesting. The same Zoom client itself. احنا دلوقتي بتكلم احمد على التليفون وسايق، بس انا وصلت على المكتب. I can escalate to a meeting. Let's turn a video on and share documents and so on. ليه بس كده؟ احنا لسه بنقول. لا اله الا الله. Okay, let's try again. Okay, we're back. بس الحاجة الانترستنج اللي عايز اوريها لكم is the options ايه اللي اقدر اعمله في this call. This is a voice over IP call. Free extension to extension call. All I need is internet في البلد او برا البلد. ليه بس ليه صدقوا. طيب خلينا just to save the time I can show you this in closely يعني بس one of the things we can do is I can switch to PSTN يعني this is a free internal to internal call. I can switch to carrier with a click of a button. Zoom will call me on my number and I can take the call on my GSM instead. So the call moves to GSM not on a Zoom client anymore. ده ممكن يكون بسبب انه internet coverage في الحتة اللي فيها ضعيف فلازم switch to PSTN. And the option to park the call. Call park is أنا هبارك الكول على 4-digit extension بحيث إنه أي حد في الشركة can dial this 4 digits and retrieve this call. I'm sure you've seen this في المستشفيات. عادة parking call بيبقى call لدكتور الفلاني على extension 1 2 3. Paging بتتقال دكتور بيسمع المسج من أي تليفون جنبه يطلب 1 2 3 will retrieve the call for this. I can do this too. Escalate to a meeting أو invite to another meeting. يعني أنا عارف إنه أحمد عنده meeting دلوقتي وحسام بيكلمني على التليفون. إيه رأيك ندخل meeting بتاع أحمد؟ Let's do this. Hand off to a conference room. Zoom room وأنا physically جنب الزوم room. I can detect that there is a Zoom room جنبي and I can switch the phone call to a Zoom room and it becomes a meeting. Think of it this way. نفترض إن أنت سايق Zoom phone في العربية بكلم أحمد internal extension. وصلت المكتب دخلت المكتب I'm walking to the conference room. I can detect and the conference room is in the vicinity. ممكن أشرح لكم إزاي بتحصل دي and I can hand off the call to the room. The call will drop من my Zoom client بنكمل جوه Zoom room conference room. So these are the first scenario that I wanted to show. The flexibility of the features what you can do with an actual simple call. And again, it's a phone call but when we use Zoom phone جوه منظومة UCaaS of Zoom the options are very effective how we want to communicate. مش بس phone call, meetings, rooms and so on. So that was the first scenario I wanted to show you. The second one is this. طبعا what you see here is a Cisco soft phone. Right? وده سيناريو أنا حابب أركز عليه قوي لأنه 90% من ال customers in the region بنقابل scenarios where they have a PBX of some kind installed in a data center. This could be an Avaya PBX, Cisco PBX, Call Manager, Avaya Aura, or Avaya IP Office. It could be a Mitel PBX, could be any PBX. أول حاجة I want to show لو لاحظتم إنه the Zoom phone extension is the same as the Cisco extension. ليه؟ لأنه لو نفترض إنه إحنا اتفقنا إنه أنت حابب to modernize old system on premise, hardware end of support, and you're looking for a cloud solution to reduce the cost, no more hardware servers upgrade, no more expensive resources to manage, and so on. And you want to have a simple solution that is cloud-based, software-based, familiar. بس أنت في نفس الوقت مش عايز تلخبط الناس، لأن الناس عارفة أن أنا عندي سيسكو فون على مكتبي بديس extension. طب زوم هتيجي تلخبط الدنيا؟ لا. Zoom can have the same extension as the user. مش بس كده. We can deploy it in a way بحيث إنه لو أنا عملت الكول the call can be dual forked على both the Zoom client and a Cisco extension. عشان مضطر أجيب تليفوني عشان أعمل الكول وأوريها لكم. Okay. لو تلاحظوا إن الكول is ringing on my Zoom client وفي نفس الوقت on my Cisco phone. This can be an Avaya phone. This can be any third-party PBX. تمام؟ اللي حصل هنا إنه when we deployed this, we made sure إنه the user مش بيحس بفرق. كل اللي اتضاف كل حاجة زي ما هي، PBX زي ما هو، phone زي ما هو. كل اللي احنا ضفناه is a Zoom phone with the same extension بس عندك instant mobility. Soft phone on a laptop. You can add بقى numbers to this. يعني مثلا اليوزر ده ممكن ما يكونش عنده أرقام أو أنت كان نفسك تديله أرقام في كذا دولة. Very difficult to do on a traditional on-premise system. Almost impossible. It will be very expensive for sure. On Zoom, you can do this in minutes. You assign the numbers to this user, and you give them this on a Zoom client, and they get to choose what number to use when they make the outbound call, or what number to use to receive inbound calls. طيب, switching سريعا للاركتكتشر لأن دي مهمة. How do we do this? Your existing PBX is here. What we add, session border controller. Session border controller, for those who are not familiar with it, هو عبارة عن SIP firewall. ليه؟ لأن احنا محتاجين نطلع internet based SIP trunk, secure TLS 1.2 SIP trunk بينك وبين Zoom. بين الداتا سنتر وبين Zoom. To do this, security unnegotiable بالنسبة لنا and should not be negotiable. This is the firewall زي الفايروول of a website بالضبط بس in a SIP environment, session border controllers, people like Oracle, Ribbon, audio codes. This SBC can have different forms or shapes depending على details of the architecture. بمعنى, this can be a virtual machine next to the PBX with a SIP trunk inside your LAN. And then from this SBC, we assign a public static IP to the interface. We NAT it from your firewall, one-to-one netting. We apply your own TLS certificate, but it must be signed by an authority that we trust. Once that's done, this trunk is up to Zoom. Zoom users are already rolled out easily in 10 minutes. You assign numbers to them and extension in minutes. كل اللي فاضل بس إن نروح على SBC وبنقول الدايل بلان شكلها عامل إزاي. And I want to use the same extension or I want to use a different extension. It's up to you. How do you want to do it? And عايز أقول والله and I want to add different extension dial plan for Zoom. Good. أو زي ما شفنا the same extension 3001 can do that too. Manipulation of a dial plan on premise happens على SBC. Now, so SBC options are so many, which means our partners like Arcan, they are a certified SBC reseller, trained and certified and able to deploy this on premise. Additionally, Arcan can provide an SBC as a service feature, which means you don't have to deploy the SBC حتى عندك on premise. They will take care of this connectivity to Zoom on your behalf. The end result is the same في الآخر, secure SIP trunk to Zoom with your static public IP, your own TLS certificate. This trunk is up to Zoom all the time. The pairing between the Zoom extension and the existing infrastructure is done. This is day one, day two, let's say. This is today. طبعا I'm assuming احنا is the plan and انت you want to slowly migrate or move from an outdated old hardware on-premise system into a modern solution. الفكرة ان انت when we do it that way, you control how and when. يعني once we deploy this, والله أنا هقول I will add 10% of my users بس I will give them Zoom in the coming 6 months. My plan next year is to replace the old phones and get them new phones, and you have the option. You control how fast and how much of the users to move from old to new. Seamlessly من غير ما اليوزر يحس. اليوزر عنده نفس الاكستنشن. كل بس الفكرة إن هو عنده a familiar Zoom app now enabled with phone. In minutes you can change and add stuff. تفضلي. Yes, the concern of internet outage. Great question. If you remember Zoom Node, our hybrid platform, part of the engines that we can deploy on a Zoom node is the Zoom Phone local survivability. Another VM that is deployed in your premise in case this internet connection is down. This becomes your local temporary PBX, Zoom PBX. بحيث انه هو still can connect to the SBC. معناها انه even when there's no internet, these devices can still talk and have inbound and outbound calls, can still speak to your PBX. So it maintains the dial plan. When the internet is back as usual, everything goes back to normal, and this is on standby.
So, in other words, ما ينفعش يشتغل directly مع PBX. So
Zoom مع PBX?
No. The phone itself. So let's put a scenario. Two things. Can it be deployed on cloud? يعني احنا serverات voice already على cloud. Can we have this transition to a cloud servers? Well, it has to be on-prem implementation.
This in case your system is on-premise. Doesn't have to be. If your system is already in the cloud, we can integrate cloud to cloud still.
Voice transmission لازم يعدي من ال SBC لزوم كلاود وبعدين يطلع للكلاينت. ما ينفعش يطلع.
Depends on call flow. Depends on call flow.
No. أنا بتكلم يكون في direct connection between the PBX and the soft phone itself directly.
Does the Zoom soft phone? No.
ينفعش.
No. Zoom soft phone needs the Zoom to work, to function.
So there's no like standard SIP interface can be configured with an endpoint from a different environment. No.
لا لأن احنا we don't make endpoints ما بنعملش hardware. The Zoom client is native client. حتى the port TCP port that we use is not the standard 5060 or 5061. It's native to our Zoom environment.
Thank you.
ولكن العكس صحيح. In this migration phase النهارده احنا زي ما بنقول day one less invasive زي ما بنقول يعني جراحة بسيطة ما هيش جراحة فظيعة. طيب بهدف ان انت to add Zoom phone من غير ما نلخبط ال existing infrastructure من غير ما ناد urgency لان دي مهمة. ناس كتير بالذات IT leaders بيبقى قلقان انه طب الكونتراكت هعمل ايه؟ فاهم ازاي؟ سؤال بيقرق كل الاي تي ليدرز. في الحاله دي بيدي لك الفلكسبيليتي ان انت تقرر in your own time, no pressure. تمام؟ add 5% of the users. They're not going to see any difference. السنه الجايه when you have the budget approvals to buy phones or not to buy phones, some customers مثلا عايز to move away من hardware completely. انا عايز يبقى عندي soft phone, hardware phone on a desk ما بقناش محتاجينه anymore, which is true to some extent. For day one everything is as is untouched. طيب let's day 3. Day 3 ده معناها انه بكره 6 months from now, a year from now, you're ready ان انت to turn off the old, outdated, out of support hardware, and you're ready to move 100% to Zoom. The question becomes, these PBX phones, do we support them? We can have a look. If it's a third-party SIP device, open, it will work. If it's one of our certified devices, Cisco included, we'll have a look. We can have them working مع Zoom. So it's a question أو it's a يعني exercise بنعمله مع customers. What are the phone models do you have? مثلا Avaya, the J179 series مثلا, the J1XX series. All of these devices can be certified, can be loaded with a SIP firmware that can work مع Zoom. Secure with TLS for signaling and secure RTP for media, certified by Zoom. If the device is not certified, by the way, when we say certified معناها ببساطة we tested it, which means إنه لو فيها مشكلة وفتحت Zoom support ticket, we will support it. If a device is not certified, هيشتغل most likely. لو في مشكلة can we open ticket مع Zoom? Yes. Do we commit إن هي نشغلها؟ لا. We don't commit. We'll do our best to try. But because we haven't tested this, لأنه في موديلات كتير, we will able to test every single model في market. It's impossible. ولكن we've tested and certified the known devices, a long list, and we will share this. I can open it here as well for you to have a look. ولكن the exercise في الآخر إنه if يعني the whatever certified possible to work مع Zoom هنشغلها مع Zoom. Most likely, in most of the cases, by that time, our customers are ready to either move away from hardware completely and save that cost, or refresh and have brand new phones anyway. right? ولكن the option is there. So that's the second important aspect. Now, any questions on this bit? Because this we can have later on deep dive sessions and workshops on this for as long as you want. But this is especially when it's involved the integration with the PBX. Regardless of the PBX, as long as it has a SIP interface, we can have this integration work. أي سؤال on this point? Okay, let me pause for a second here and عايز أوري. تفضلي. Yes. Yes. الاثنين. Internal and external. So internally the phones will register to the survivable node. في نفس الوقت survivable node can still talk to the SBC and make inbound and outbound calls. So PST and access will still work internally as well. This website is publicly available, the list of certified hardware in general, مش بس phones. Let's go through them quickly. In terms of disk phones, audio code, Cisco, Grand Scream, Poly, and E-Link. Well, so let's say مثلا, let's start with the Cisco part. One thing to note here. From our previous experience, the percentage of users اللي عندهم Cisco Call Manager phones who use them with Zoom is almost zero. The reason is, للأسف, to be able to use these models with Zoom, you have to have the multi-platform firmware from Cisco. To be able to load it with an open SIP firmware عشان يشتغل مع third party system that is not a call manager. للأسف الشديد, this is an additional license, actually ما هياش رخيصة. It's the way Cisco is, there's nothing we can do about it. For some customers, they do, very few they do. But they found alternative solutions to this. ولكن technically, as long as if you have the multi-platform firmware license, we flash the Cisco phone, it will work مع Zoom. Let's take another example. The Avaya ones are not tested here, are not certified here, but we know that it works because it's OpenSIP. We've seen them working with actual deployments and POCs. When a generic SIP phone or a third-party SIP phone that has not been listed here هيشتغل, provided إنه minimum can do TLS 1.2 for signaling and can do SRTP. يعني again, security بالنسبة لنا is unnegotiable. So at minimum, if the phone can support these, هيشتغل مع Zoom. لو حصل مشكلة and we open support مع Zoom, do we commit to fix it? If it's not certified, we cannot commit because we have no reference of testing, but we'll try as much as we can. If it's one of our certified devices, then we guarantee a Zoom إن هتشتغل, ولو عندك مشكلة technically, we commit to fix it. طيب مش بس phones and devices, في كمان هنا analog gateways. In some examples, انت عايز high density analog gateway لأنه you need either fax machines or analog devices. You can still do this too from these certifiers. تفضل. Correct.
That this can be overcome by connecting directly to the PBX.
Exactly. صح.
So
100%. 100%. In many cases, زي ما حضرتك تفضلت, لما بنلاقي إن في موضوع معقد to have a third party SIP device connected to Zoom لأنه it's not certified, الحل اللي بنوصل له most of the time, if not all the time, إنه let's keep the PBX, let's keep these phones connected to the PBX. Then this is where you get the most features out of these devices, and then we will look for an alternative solution when the time is right. The good news here إن إحنا عندنا flexibility, and when we deploy يعني back to this slide, when we deploy the BYOC architecture in that way, you get the flexibility انه these devices are so old, they don't support SIP, I cannot get them, مش هعرف اشغلهم مع Zoom. That's okay. نخلي ال PBX maybe only for these devices. لو devices are modern enough and they support SIP, شغلهم مع Zoom. If not, نخلي ال PBX. فكلام حضرتك مظبوط 100%.
So to complete my question, then how many licenses should I pay for this?
No, this does not require any special license from Zoom. So as long as you have a Zoom phone license for the user, we don't care how many devices they use. There's no specific license to this. And we allow for each user to use his same license on one laptop, one mobile, one tablet at the same time, and as many physical devices as you wish to add to the user. So we don't, and there's no specific license to this. تفضل.
Just the license per user.
Yes.
So, previously Ian mentioned that there's 3 types of license, 3 levels of license. Does it depend on each type of license or all the same?
That's a good question. So the licensing of Zoom Phone will depend whether you're buying the calling plan from Zoom as well or not. So if you're buying a Zoom Phone license with a global select calling plan, because I want to have numbers in US and the UK and those 46 plus countries, that's the license. It has an embedded Zoom Phone license in it. بس عندك الأوبشن إنه لا أنا مش عايز أشتري. I have my own PSTN, I have my own PBX. مش محتاج أشتري PSTN license from Zoom, so I will buy only one specific اسمها Zoom Pro license في الحالة دي, which is not the minimum, but it's the enough license you need. That's it.
Ian, it's the highest.
No, Pro is not the highest. So the highest is the one with the calling plan. That would be the highest license.
I meant within the 3 levels of license without buying a plan, the Zoom Pro is the highest.
It's the highest. It's what you need. That's it. Yes.
For the multiple devices.
Correct. So
But the first one doesn't have this option, right?
the first one, which means
I don't recall its name, but I know the common area and the Zoom.
yes,
The first one in line.
yes,
Does it have
It
the multiple
doesn't.
devices?
yes. So you can have. So we have a Zoom Phone Basic license, right? Zoom Phone Basic is free.
It's called basic.
Yes, but you cannot assign a phone to that user, and some of the features like مثلا transcription, right, are not enabled. So basic enough
Call it
features,
soft phone, right?
just internal only soft phone.
It's basic.
Basic, correct. Yes. Okay. So let's see what happened here. One timeout session. Okay. Type. So moving on. So now that we talked as an example with a PBX. So moving on to this, I wanted to show you how we integrate with Microsoft Teams. And as Ian said, we have to, because who doesn't have Microsoft Teams agreement? However, this method of integration is something we launched very soon. بتخليك تستعمل Microsoft Teams client as the soft phone مع Zoom. Again, use Microsoft Teams client as the soft phone to Zoom PBX. فالZoom Teams, Microsoft Teams calling dial pad becomes using Zoom backend to make and receive the calls. Why do we do this? إيه الفايدة يعني? Okay. First of all, let's talk about the licensing requirement of this, right? And then we'll get to the part as in why is this useful? Why do we need it? طبعا to enable the dial pad and the Microsoft Teams license, you need to have either an E5, the expensive one, or the E3 with the phone add-on, and so on. So we need the phone add-on to be enabled on the Microsoft Teams. And on the Zoom side, you just need the minimum of the Zoom Phone Pro in this case. طيب. السؤال اللي بيطرح نفسه إنه طيب أنا عندي Microsoft Teams and I'm using Microsoft Teams calling والحياة كويسة. Why do I need to buy Zoom؟ سؤال جميل. الإجابة هي for business continuity. The times that unfortunately can be more than we like when Microsoft Teams is out of service, you have a disaster recovery mechanism in the new world of today. You can go to your Zoom portal and say, for these users that I've added this feature to, Microsoft Teams is out, okay, switch to Zoom. From a drag and drop on your Zoom portal, and these users will start using Zoom client to continue. So initially, in a green day, زي ما بنقول, they use Microsoft Teams with Zoom. But in case there's an outages, of which they sometimes unfortunately happen, as a business continuity or disaster recovery mechanism, you can switch to Zoom for these users. The same numbers, the same extension, the same everything. بس بدل ما هو بيستعمل التيمز client, هنخليه يستعمل زوم دلوقتي لأنه Teams unfortunately is out of service. But why do I have to pay 2 licenses? Great question. But for any critical customer, mission critical customer, most of these customers, they actually pay not exactly twice, but they pay again for a DR setup to be used when a mission critical environment cannot afford to have an outage. So this is an option, right? It's an option for our customers. It's not for everyone. ولكن the way this is going to work in reality is, let's say أنت عندك 100 user النهارده on Microsoft Teams calling. I want to choose 10 users من ال 100 دول, and I will say ال 10 دول cannot afford to have no telephony when Microsoft Teams is out of service, and I will use this integration for these users. So what we do, we add the phone licenses and the Microsoft Teams add-on only for these users, so that whenever there's an outage, we have a disaster recovery setup. Usually they are, depends on the environment, depends on the customer. في customers بنوك مثلا عادة بيقولوا أنا I want to have 100% capacity. لو أنا عندي 1500 user هنا, I will buy 1500 user تانيين in DR just to be sure no, I have no loss of service. Customers بيقولوا لا, I will make 100% 50%. I will buy additional 50% مثلا. So it depends على الcustomer, depends on the environment. ولكن it is a license that is paid again for a small fraction of user for the purpose of disaster recovery. Again, the end result is these users, even though they are in a hybrid nature, can still communicate with each other. So Microsoft Teams user can call a Zoom extension, can record on Zoom, the call logs are on Zoom. So Zoom becomes the PBX, Teams becomes the soft phone only in this case. Okay, let's see if that demo is gonna work. Team viewer. Okay. Standard team user without telephony yet. طيب اللي احنا نعمله هو one, we need to add this Microsoft user as a Zoom user. So the standard method is you import or you add this user to invite to join your Zoom account, gets the email to activate and so on. You must have seen this process before. And then the next step, how do you do this on the portal? After you add the user, the Microsoft Teams user to Zoom, and you assign the bundles to them, the bundle we need to assign here is an add-on, اسمه Zoom Phone for Microsoft Teams. It's an optional add-on to the Zoom Phone license. You assign this add-on. Static على فكرة. Okay. You assign this add-on, and the next step is you sync with Teams. This is a very clever part. لا محتاجين SBC on premise ولا any of this. اللي هيحصل simply Zoom Cloud is going to contact Teams Cloud after you authenticate your Microsoft Teams account through the Microsoft Teams APIs. We will grab the routing policies that you have on your Microsoft tenant, right? And then we choose the recommended routing policy and we click sync. So this is very seamless to the administrator. اللي حصل هنا إنه this user now is assigned a Zoom phone number, but he will use Teams as the soft phone, which means he can use Teams for everything else, for meetings, for chat, for file transfer, SharePoint, and so on. ولكن اللي حصل هنا إنه this user is now synced with Teams. And if we quit the Teams client and we relaunch, it's probably might take a few bit of time. بس اللي هيحصل إنه you will start seeing a number that is assigned to the Microsoft Teams user from Zoom. So Zoom becomes the PBX في الحالة. Microsoft Teams becomes the soft phone, which means إنه اليوزر لو عمل call هيعملها through the Zoom PBX, which means if you have a BYOC set up on this it will هتشتغل. If you have a third-party SIP device as a Zoom backend هتشتغل. So this is again another option that we provide for Microsoft Teams customers who have already used the telephony. So we're happy to integrate with them and work with them. But في الحالة دي زي ما بنقول, why do I have to do this? For business continuity and disaster recovery. السؤال اللي بتسأله, طب هشتري زوم تاني ليه? The answer is, in case it's an option, choose a fraction of the users. You choose and the user that cannot have no telephony because of a Teams outage. Just not possible. Could be a hospital, could be an operations room, could be anything mission critical that cannot have an outage. So this solution is for. Okay, I think this is it for the demos. So مش عايز أطول عليكم أكتر من كده. I think it's time for a break. So بنتكلم تاني I think بعد البريك will take maybe 10 minutes. مظبوط يا أحمد؟ Okay. نشوفكم in 10 minutes. شكرا جزيلا.